So today we're going to do a review and a showdown between the Silky Gomboy and the Bahco Laplander. All right, let's start with the Silky Gomboy. Okay, to begin with, we received both of these saws brand new. This particular saw came in a plastic case. It came out of the case partially opened, as it was shipped with a small plastic piece in here to keep the blade from probably banging up against itself during shipment. All right, so having said that, let's get into it. Right away you notice the nice cushioned grip here. It's a rubberized handle with a lanyard hole. It has a lock up here, it's very tight spring loaded. I noticed a couple of notches right away in the blade, which is a hint to me that possibly there's a few different positions. There's one, two, there seems to be two positions. Yep, there's two positions, so there's two notches in there. Two locking positions in the open. One, two, and then just to push it again and it clicks close. I do observe that there is no close lock for this saw. That's a slight concern for me. All right, let's put this aside and we'll do some other measurements with it in a second. We'll go right to the Bahco Laplander. I am familiar with the saw because I've used it before. It does have a lock close position, a lock open position. That's the only two positions it has. Again, a rubberized handle. This one has a lanyard hole with a leather strap that's come with it for a lanyard. There is a satin black, but looks like powder coated finish on the blade. And I do like the feel of it. It's quite a bit lighter than the Silky. So why don't we do that next? Let's weigh them in. Okay, first up, we're going to set up the scale for grams. We're going to weigh the Silky Gomboy. It weighs in at 265 grams. The Bahco Laplander, with its leather strap, weighs in at 190 grams. Well, folks, it looks like this is our heavyweight Gomboy by Silky, 265 grams. Now let's go on to talk about some of the specifics. Okay, so let's talk about some dimensions. Fully extended, the Silky Gomboy is about 19, and it looks like 7/8 from stem to stern. 19 and 7/8. The actual cutting edge, the cutting edge on this is about 9 1/4. Okay, next up, the Bahco Laplander, fully extended, not including the lanyard, of course, is 15 1/4 or thereabouts, close to 15, 15 3/4. The actual cutting edge is about 7 1/4, but I will make a note that the cutting edge does go beyond the handle edge here as it comes out onto the saw. So if we took that into consideration as we were cutting down through a piece, now we're down to about 6 17/16. Excuse me, 15/16. So it's a little bit shorter. So in that regard, the cutting edges of these two saws are quite different. There's about almost 25% less cutting edge on the Bahco than there is on the Silky. All right, let's talk about tooth configuration next. Okay, starting with the Bahco Laplander. First of all, the coating on the blade, as I've done some research on it, and it looks like a powder coating of some sort, basically for corrosion resistance. And on my older saw that I've used some, this coating actually gets a little bit smoother, quite a bit smoother. And also, as we discussed before, I use a either WD-40 or Croil to coat the blade after it's broken in a little bit, and it helps keep the pitch residue off it. As far as the tooth configuration, you're looking at 7 TPI or teeth per inch. It's called hard point toothing. Very good for just a general purpose saw for bone, plastic, green, and dry wood. So having said that, let's go to the Silky saw. Okay, on to the Gomboy by Silky. This is the Silky Gomboy 240. It is a medium duty saw in that it has 8.5 teeth per inch. It's what they call an intermediary saw in that it does basically, it covers the same jobs like the Bahco does, where you can do, bone, plastic, green wood, dry wood, etc. Both saws sell like saws that do specific jobs, such as just dry or just green or just bone, etc. But both of these saws pretty much cover the gamut in terms of cutting, which I like. A couple of things about this test already that I'm concerned with, and that is the blade length of this is a lot longer than the Laplander. Okay, so there's going to be an advantage there. This does come in a 240, a 210 size, and so I probably should have gotten that in order to get something closer to the Laplander. And the tooth configuration is quite a bit different. These teeth are quite a bit different in design in terms of the kerf, and it has a tapered spine on it, so binding, I can tell you right off the bat, should be a lot less. All right, so having said all of that, some observations about the saws themselves. Okay, so quickly, some quick observations starting with the Silky. Number one, I really don't like the fact that there's no back lock on this. The fact that it comes into this case, which adds considerable weight in order to keep it closed. This is not something that I'm going to be adding, I suppose you could say that it's a container of sorts, but it's got holes in the bottom of it, so maybe it's not considered a container. I just really don't think I would be putting this in my pack. So instead, I'm going to have to resort to either a Ranger band or a rubber band to keep this closed. I just don't want that blade opening up in my pack at all, okay? Two, it's quite a bit heavier than the Bahco, so there is that is a concern as well. Let's go on to the Bahco, and then we'll be getting out to the performance test itself. Okay, moving on to the Bahco. It's a saw that I'm very familiar with, as I have one already. It does have a coating on there that I'm a little bit concerned with for during the test, as it'll probably add a little extra friction until the saw is broken in. This coating probably won't wear down, obviously, in the first test. I do like the fact that it locks in the open position as well as the closed position. So I do like that. The handle is very comfortable. It's a lightweight saw, and though it has all of these qualities, it's still very durable. I've never had an issue with mine other than the fact that it's getting a bit on the dull side. Now let's have some observations as to access of these products and price. Okay, a couple observations and some concerns. First of all, I'm looking for a sharpening kit for this particular blade. The research that I've come up with right now, a sharpening kit goes for $40. So I thought maybe I could buy a blade, but as it turns out, the blades themselves are more expensive than the entire saw when it's on sale. So I'm kind of beating my head against the wall right now regarding that. Now, if I run into the same problem with the Gomboy, it's basically the same scenario, that the blade itself on the Silky site, the replacement blade, is more expensive than the entire saw is on sale at Amazon. So, you know, there seems to be like this disconnect in terms of, you want something that's sustainable, but it's not very sustainable if you have to keep buying a new saw as it being the cheapest way out for a sharp saw. They have, you know, there's components on here where they can be disassembled. They should be able to be sharpened for less than what it costs for a brand new blade. But more on that later. So let's get out to the woods and get these things to work and do the showdown.
Okay, so now we're going to come to the cutting performance showdown of our video, and we're going to use the Laplander and the Silky Gomboy on this piece of down maple. Now I picked out a section in here that's very consistent, and I'm going to cut two pieces. I'm going to do it first with the Gomboy, then the Laplander, and then I'm going to do the Laplander and then the Gomboy, just to make sure that I get a pretty even idea which one is better. I have to tell you, in all honesty, that I'm going to say the Silky, I'm already leaning towards it just because of how sharp it is. Now you just saw me take off the rubber band because there is no lock for this to keep it closed. So I put a little rubber band on here in lieu of carrying the case around. It keeps the blade closed. The Bahco doesn't have that, and that's one of the downfalls. You know, if I had to rate this on a star system, to me, that's at least a half a star off. I mean, you got to talk about safety if you're talking about something that does that in your pack or your pocket or just whatever. Okay, so we're going to cut the section first with the Gomboy, and then we're going to do the Laplander, so stay tuned. Okay, because I don't have an assistant, we have a low budget operation here. I don't have an assistant. I don't have anybody to time this. So I'm going to say ready, set, go. And if you guys want to time it on your end, that's fine, and add it in the comment section. That would be real helpful. I'll even do it at home and put it in the show notes. Okay, first up is the Silky saw. Ready? I'm going to start all the way up here. Ready, get set, go. Wow. That's all I can say is wow. Okay. We'll do the Bahco next. All right, the Bahco saw next. Ready, get set, go. Okay. I'm going to do the Gomboy and the Bahco again. I'm going to do the Bahco first this time. Ready, get set, go. And now, finally, the Silky. Ready, get set, go. All right, that last one, I don't know how well I would time that because it's pretty punky in there. All right, some quick observations here, okay? Let me get things together. I'll be right back with you. Okay, some real quick observations. First of all, when I started to saw with the Silky, and most of the time it cuts when you're pulling back, and I believe that's the same with the Bahco, but I think that the majority, maybe 90% of the cutting action, if not all of it, is when you're pulling back on the saw with the Gomboy. With the Bahco, I do feel it cutting a little bit on the when you're moving forward with it. But there's, you know, the biggest difference between these saws, if you could take, you know, and make the blades the same size and make, I just think that there's a little bit more friction in here, the way it's painted. And my older saw is very smooth, so it might not hurt. And we're going to do this at the very end. It's not really a trial or anything, but I'm going to bump my saw up against the Silky, only because it's so smooth out here. Okay. The one thing I do notice about the design is that when you look at the blade itself, the teeth, in terms of the width of the teeth and how they're set, it seems to be not that much different than the back edge of the Bahco. Whereas when you look at the Silky, there is no offset of the teeth, okay? But they have designed the blade to be narrower at the back than it is at the front. And so it naturally doesn't bind. So even though you saw me pulling against the saw at the beginning with some resistance, after a while, it really lives up to its name, Silky. I mean, it just has that, just almost like the weight of the saw is doing its work for you. All right, so how do you make a call like this? You know, obviously the saw is bigger, it's heavier, it's more expensive. The only way I can, you know, I will tell you this. I probably will not be giving up my Bahco anytime soon. But if I go out, I'm probably going to carry this more than half the time, if not all the time. Because the extra weight and the amount of wood that you could probably process. Now, when you get into a thicker piece of wood, you know, I think that's where it's really gonna show its colors, on a larger piece of wood. So at any rate, that's my 2 cents. I really think that the Silky saw, I don't know that it was even a fair fight. It was like, you know, you're coming to a knife fight with a gun over here, and these guys showed up with, you know, a penknife. So as far as I'm concerned, if you've got $34 to spend, there's your saw. If you have $20 to spend, there's your saw. And you know what? You're going to be fine in either respect. You're probably not going to be able to cut quite as much firewood as this, as the Silky with this one, but it's lighter, it's cheaper, you know, so you have to look at it from what works for you in that regard. And not only that, I don't have any real idea what the longevity is going to be like. I can only guess because I've only had this 2 weeks. So what I will say though is that it is made fairly well. The design aspect of it, I'm still a little sketchy with the safety aspect. You know, I have to carry a rubber band or put some kind of lanyard around it. I want to know what that hole is. So if anybody knows what that hole is for, please, by all means, let me know in the comment section. All right, so we're going to close with a quick sawing showdown between my old saw and this brand new saw, and see how different it is. That's going to make the decision of whether or not it goes in my pack. And then and if you have any comments, you can obviously leave them. And you know, if you guys have had experience with these, I'd really love to hear about it in the comment section. And anyway, I'll leave the links to both of these saws down there. Do your research and look around, and YouTube videos are usually filled with reviews on these things. I don't know that they've ever been necessarily done like this per se, but at any rate. All right, so thanks for watching. Give me a like on the video if you enjoyed it and it was informational and you got something out of it, and leave some comments or suggestions down below as usual. Stay safe, get out there and train. Until next time, take care. Bye-bye.